Welcome to the Happy Wealthy Show. My name is Neo Phalora. Just call me Neo. How do you create a wealthy lifestyle? Well, it's much more than money. So let's redefine wealth as a matrix of impact, fulfillment, worthiness, success, relationships, and revenue. We'll explore the definable and digestible steps to get you there, and how we can live the highest quality of life along the way. I know that we can be happy and wealthy, and I'm here to show you how. Welcome to the Happy Wealthy Show. I'm your host, Neo Phalora, and today I have a very special guest. I know hosts and podcasts always talk about how special their guests are, but this one in particular is very special to me. Dr. Cathleen King is somebody that I got to know on my chronic illness journey. We basically rewired ourselves together, overcame a lot of hurdles in life together, but her hurdles are not small. Cathleen is not only somebody who has her doctorate in somatics, but she's somebody who had chronic disease, Lyme, mold toxicity, many other things that she'll talk about. But in that process, she also overcame tremendous amount of social, mental, and spiritual pressure, and how she was raised religiously, how her circumstances, her lives really affected us. We're going to have a deep discussion today. If you guys are ready to really change your level of mindset that exists below the neck, we'll be talking about that as well. Welcome, Dr. Cathleen King.
Thanks, Neil. I'm so excited to get to talk to you today.
Yeah, my pleasure, love. This is going to be amazing. So for those of people that have not met you before, can you tell us in about 90 seconds, like, who are you? What do you do? What's your genius?
Sure. So I like to help people who have chronic illness challenges or nervous system challenges learn how to self-regulate their autonomic nervous system and improve their biological function. I'm somebody who personally walked the path of over 10 years feeling very debilitated from Lyme disease, mold toxicity, digestive issues, et cetera, et cetera. I was bedbound for a long time. And I also have a background being a physical therapist, so I understood the mind-body connection. Eventually put together some tools and practices to help my own biology turn on its immune response and detoxify. And over time, got my function back and got back to work. And now we have a huge community. We help thousands of people all over the world do the same thing.
Yeah, it has made such an impact on so many people's lives. I know it's thousands at this point. It's mine as well. Kathleen and I, in the earliest versions of this primal trust thing that she's put out there, we did some versions together, and she tested it out. So I feel very privileged to have that opportunity. And why are we talking about health, guys? If you're listening today, you're like, I don't have chronic illness. This podcast isn't for me. What the hell are we talking about today? What I'm talking about is the most important part of wealth that you can have, and that is health. When you are healthy, you have 1,000 wishes, and when you are unhealthy, unwell, you just have one. And I'll just tell you, and I'm sure Dr. Kat would agree, I don't work with people personally on their wellness, but I can tell you that most of us have something that we've just attributed to, let's call it being human, getting older. I get this thing when I eat, and I have this pain, and sometimes my anxiety and playing gets out of control. But what we'll learn here from Dr. Kat, that all these things are relatable. But before we dive into that, I think it's really important that people understand a little bit about your backstory. Can you give us a little bit of like, how did you get to be chronically ill? Like, what were the events? Now, I know that's long, so we will shorten it for you guys. Don't worry. But like, what were some of the things that you think contributed to being, and what happened? Like, what happened as a result of that? Where were you?
Well, we know from research that if you have a lot of adverse childhood experiences or childhood trauma, that you have a classic setup to have chronic illness as an adult. This is based on the Kaiser Permanente ACEs study done in the late 1990s. There's 10 questions, depending how you score out of 0 to 10. A score of 4 or more is a pretty significant likelihood of being sick. I had a score of 9 out of 10, meaning I had a pretty eventful childhood, meaning I did not have a lot of regulation taught to me. I did not have a nervous system that learned how to calm down. I became a type A overachiever to functionally handle that kind of trauma, which a lot of people do. Type A overachievement is often a trauma response. but it's a setup of having a nervous system that's in constant stress. Then you get a perfect storm of a pathogen or toxin exposure, a relationship breakup, and the nervous system just starts to crumble. And over time, you develop more and more symptoms. So it absolutely stems from childhood. I grew up in a pretty intense household, a lot of violence around me, alcohol, drugs, illiteracy, homelessness, poverty, you name it. And all of those things play a role in what might set you up in the future to be able to trust the world, to trust your body, to feel safe to play, to feel safe to relax. I didn't know how to do any of that. It's still a challenge for me. I have to really work at it every single day. I have to learn and teach my body every day how to come into safety because my viewpoint, my perspective growing up, it just wasn't there. So that's the setup. I had the perfect setup. And so I now get to teach others about it.
The hallmark of the healer is that they seek the healings for themselves, right? And we teach to our wound, so often. You said a word there that I want to rewind for people a little bit. And if you're listening, this is probably not a word that you think about a lot, but I can promise you that your whole nervous system, your whole meat suit being is looking out for it. That's safety. Beyond love on this earth, our number one need is for safety. And when I work with entrepreneurs, people, they will never tell me they have a safety problem, and I can't fucking go in and so we're going to work on safety today and be like, the hell is this? What do you mean safety? But if you feel safe, you can do anything. Let's just think about it. For those of you that have been a kid or have kids, it should be all of you. When kids do something amazing, they just hold it up right to your face. Look at what I drew. Look at who I am. Come down and see my mini skit. Look how amazing I am. But we don't have that impetus as adults. We adopt this false humility bullshit, which is its own separate podcast, right? But Dr. Kat has spent her lives really helping people create a safety for themselves. And it's not just about healing your nervous system, guys. It's about doing big, unbelievable, unthinkable things. So talk to me a little bit about safety.
Safety is everything. And it's interesting that you work with entrepreneurs because I would say for anybody who is wanting to build a business, your nervous system capacity for stress, for challenge, for the unknown is in direct relationship to how successful you will be. Everything that limits us, our limit is our own nervous system in everything, our relationships, our business growing, our health. It's our nervous system that controls our actions and our behaviors, our perspectives, the opportunities we attract to us. So feeling safe builds this resilient foundation for not only your nervous system, but literally what you attract in your life. Safety is key. Love and safety is key.
That's so well said. If you're listening, I would play that soundbite back and really really absorb that, like really absorb what Dr. Kat said. And I know she's not an entrepreneurial coach, but trust me, um, one of the things that we have in our parallel journeys is maybe a little bit to our detriment. We're both high achievers, and a lot of people when they undertake a healing journey, they kind of retreat from a lot of things. And I know Dr. Kat, just like me, you actually ended up doing a lot of crazy, amazing things on your journey to kind of prove to yourself that you could do them. Now, recently, they're showing that there's an area of the brain, and the name leaves me for a second. Dr. Andrew Huberman highlighted it, that thrives from doing challenging stuff. Now, let me qualify it here. It's not doing challenging stuff that you enjoy or that you have a lot of repetition around. That ain't challenging, folks. Challenging is doing shit you don't want to do and helping yourself through that. But there's two ways to approach that. There's the traditional male and divine masculine energy, like get shit done, 10x, all this stuff that you see in the interwebs. Or there's holding a space to retrain your nervous system in more divine feminine so that you can do hard stuff. And in her program, Dr. Kat has a structure sheet, which she asks people to do things that are challenging for them as a part of their recovery. Talk to me about like how that works and why that's important.
I will say that in this process of even me building this business, that challenge, the unknown, the fear, having to create the structure to get over the things that were scary, like building a website, setting up payment processes, all the things I didn't know how to do and caused me to shake. I don't know what I'm doing.
The number of times that Dr. Kat would message me, she'd go, Neil, I just don't understand. I just don't know if I can do these. How do I set this up? How do like, I'm so confused. I just kept telling her, you're not confused. Stop saying that you're confused. That's part of the reason why you're confused.
All of those things that you don't know how to do and cause overwhelm. At some point, one by one, you need to face them and show your nervous system that you can do hard things. We use the phrase in Primal Trust, going to put my big girl pants on today and do these hard things. And what happens is when you choose in to face that uncertainty, overwhelm, and put your mind to it day after day, your nervous system starts to feel like I can do hard things. And then the resistance goes down and down and down. And now when I don't know how to do something, it's not that complete overwhelm. I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to do it, or I'm going to find somebody who knows how to do it and they're going to teach me. Like, I know I will figure it out because I have the history now of figuring it out. But initially, your nervous system can either scare you out of doing it, so then you become the procrastinator, or you learn how to work with the nervous system and make the daily structure to do the hard things and gain more and more self esteem and self knowing that you can get past the next hard thing that comes, because certainly hard things are going to keep coming over and over. Every day I have a new entrepreneurial challenge. Today I've got one right now, and I'm like, okay, this is hard, but I'm going to do it, and I can do it, and I can handle it because I have a history now of handling it.
That's so good. And we talk about doing these things, but we don't get the definable and digestible steps of how to do it. People say, just do it, just crush it. But how do we do those things? And I think if you guys are hearing, this is a tool. And I want to make a qualification here. If will and determination would just work, then we would all be doing it. We all be doing it. And we get such shamed in the fact that we're not doing it. And what we're saying here, what Dr. Kat is expertly saying, is like, look, you want to do big things, you've got to find a way to regulate your nervous system. It's not your mind. I'm pointing to your brain now. The mind in your acorn that's making you not do stuff. It is the level of mind that's in the body, in the nervous system, that's telling you, And one of the things I talk to my clients about a lot is how beliefs are not limiting, they're protecting, right? They're protecting beliefs, and they're developed over time because guess what? We all get dropped on our head for something, and then your unconscious brain, your body goes, I don't want you to do that again. You're going to get hurt. So guess what? We're just going to make a belief that you can't do that, or you're not good enough for that, and that will protect you, right? So, I know Dr. Kat is big on this, but then the goal is to develop a new relationship with those protecting beliefs. And that is, I really think, the unlock, because now instead of leaving them at the doorstep, which they're always going to be waiting for you, they'll never go away, you're taking them with you, and they're saying, getting to the edge of the cliff and saying, hold my hand, baby girl, baby boy, we're going to do this together, right? So I know you have this concept of being the main adult, being the bigger adult in the process, right? Developing your main adult personality. Like, this is really unique. School us a little bit here.
Yeah. So inside our head, we have all sorts of beliefs that are running the show. These beliefs were often created in childhood by a protective part of our ego, that's coined as the superego by Freud, and you might call it protective parts with internal family system. But they're a rule system to keep you safe and loved and included in the tribe. People please, perfectionism, work really hard, don't be seen, all the things that keeps you somehow in the tribe. These are the protective beliefs Neil is talking about. Now, the problem is that we've created them a long time ago, and they become a type of parent inside of us, a feeling like they're watching over us, that we have an allegiance to emotionally. So we hear that belief in that situation, we unconsciously follow it without even challenging its validity because we've listened to it for so long. Now, we have another part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, that sometimes is not online. It's not consciously working in a lot of our situations. we are unconsciously walking through our life, allowing our old beliefs to determine how we react and behave and speak. So we have to interrupt that unconscious habit and get our prefrontal cortex to wake up in every moment and inquire, what is the truth in this moment? That prefrontal conscious self, I call the adult main personality. You're all grown up now. It's now, this is the adult you, the connected self that they talk about in internal family systems, that's connected to your higher wisdom, that can stop and say, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to say yes right now when I mean no in order to be loved, because what's happening is that I'm not loving me. And what matters most is that I have self respect, not this person's approval at the expense of my own self respect. So I'm not going to say yes when I mean no. That's a conscious prefrontal decision that's interrupted an old protective belief pattern.
Wow. Yeah. And you talk about inner wisdom, like, and I love this topic because I feel like that in our society, we have, like the 12 chakras of the body. At the bottom, we have fear, then we have scarcity, then we have struggle, and then we get to hustle. We say, guess what? Congratulations, you made it. You're hustling. But that also is not an alignment, right? It is alignment, and then we get into action, and action and alignment inform each other enough to get into intuition, which we finally then get to authenticity. But like, how do we get more in our intuition? How do we develop that more? Because I didn't need Gary Vee to say this most recently at a conference, and he said to the audience, kind of knocking their heads together a little bit, he's like, we will show by science that the gut brain is the first brain. The main brain that we think of in our head is the second brain. And I just know, I was on another podcast recently, and every decision this overthinker made, he was a confessed overthinker, he said was always based on intuition. So those people who are listening to this podcast, how do we get in touch with our intuition?
Such a great question. This is the quest for all of us, is to drop back down into our body and establish a connection with that gut instinct. There's actually a part of the brain called the insula that's in constant communication with the body. That's your actual intuition part of yourself. Now, one of the best ways to start getting that insula more developed, or your connection to intuition, is to get in touch with needs of the body, not of the mind. Body needs. When are you tired? When are you thirsty? When are you hungry? What do you truly need to be eating versus not eating? When do you need to exercise? So this communication of our needs starts to build this super highway between our gut and our brain. And as those needs get met, we start getting more receptivity to intuition about a lot of other things. But it all starts with needs.
Can we help develop that part of us through getting a better relationship with our body? Meaning, I know you talk about like somatic experiencing and movement. Like, movement has been one of the biggest rehabilitators in my life. And in fact, I know somebody here in Indianapolis who was a Colts cheerleader who got a brain aneurysm. And there's this 80-year-old ballet teacher, and completely rehabilitated her through movement, right? Incredible stuff. No longer can I say any of this stuff is science fiction. We know it to be true. But there seems to be some unique relationship between moving our body and being more in touch with ourselves and our intuition and our knowledge, right? Um, Talk to me a little bit about why movement is so important in the vein of, not only living a better life, but getting more of your own answers.
So movement helps to walking, just walking, that cross crawl pattern of walking literally lights us up in a whole brain state where your left and right hemispheres start to awaken. And when the left and right hemisphere starts to awaken, they communicate better versus being in like a limbic brain state, which is just emotional survival. That's why it's really important for babies to learn to crawl. They get their cross crawl pattern and awaken their brain development, and then they learn to walk. And then as adults, often we stop walking, we stop crawling, we stop moving, and our brain development and our brain communication just kind of goes. "Meow." So getting that movement, getting those beautiful mindful patterns, whether it's yoga, tai chi, qigong, exercise, even weightlifting is still going to like help with this whole brain state. It's going to improve your brain function drastically. You're going to improve your ability to connect to the field easier. And yeah, it's the number one indicator of mortality is our lack of movement. It's the number one thing that we all need. It's how we keep our blood flowing, our lymph flowing, our health flowing, but it's essential for brain function, especially cross crawl movement. If you're having a hard time with brain functioning, just getting up and even like marching and tapping the opposite knee in place while you're marching is a cross crawl pattern, just to start awakening that brain into into activity that's more optimal.
I'm trying to think where I saw this, but they said that walking outside is so much better, not only just because we know we're connecting for nature, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the visual acuity that we develop, or the visual nature of things passing us in our eye, from our eyes,
Mm-hmm.
that you just don't get when you're walking a treadmill. Having
Exactly.
that can be very, very regulating, right? And you know where I'm going with this in terms of eye movement. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, yeah, yeah, I get all this, right? But I think people don't understand how 2 minutes a day can be more powerful than 2 hours on a Saturday. What is some small things we can do, around trying to create a sense of groundedness, of safety? So somebody's just in their day and they've got so much going on. What are some gentle things they can start doing to start creating safety, even from an eye perspective or otherwise?
So, one of the ways that we give feedback directly to our fear center of our brain is to notice that our current environment doesn't have any tigers chasing us. A lot of times in our head, we've got tigers chasing us. We're worried about work, finances, people, etc. So, the first thing is moving out of your head into your environment and simply slowly looking around your room and just breathing slowly and noticing. What's going to happen is your eyes are going to look and notice that there isn't a tiger here, especially if you look for something beautiful. Look for anything that might be novel or beautiful, or looking at something like your lamp for the first time and just noticing the beauty and the shape. That sends a signal of safety. I mean, just doing this right now, taking 30 seconds, finding something like even the doorknob, the blinds, the picture, and just looking at it with beauty and awe, you are going to feel a little down regulated. That's that quick. Even better, go outside, look at the clouds, look at the birds, look at the trees. Nature is sending us signals of regulation all the time. Take micro breaks from the computer, go outside, look out the window, go out and, move a little bit, walk a little bit, whatever you need to do to get out of the brain and into the environment. Orienting to your outer environment is step one for safety.
Yeah, I love this technique. And, for me, I have a very playful, childish brain, right? I love hanging out with my kids. And so it's like the way that I sometimes experience things is just, like as a kid, it's so easy to get into play. It's just like looking at something, but tracing it with your eyes. Imagine that you're little, just writing down the shape of whatever you're looking at, right? Or I always think about babies when they stare at their hands. They're so fascinated because they're just looking at their hands and looking at the movements, but they're doing it slowly. It's that kind of awareness. Like Kathleen said, it's just like looking at something novelly, right? Like you're looking at it for the first time. One of the things that I love to talk about on the show that I actually never wanted to talk about, but now is what I talk about full time. Funny how that happens, is money, right? The energetic money. And I think a lot of people have a lot of emotional constipation, right? Around this idea of money is tightly linked to our guilt and our shame, right? And humiliation. Um, is there any unique ways in which you approach? Because I know, like, if not checked out Dr. Kat's following, she has thousands of people following her. Stories have sometimes hundreds of thousands of views. She's built a community of thousands of people. I used to kind of, when she had I think it was in a Facebook group or something else. I forgot where it was, or it was some community, and I was like, I've been in communities with 10,000 people, and they do a live in the community, and 4 people show up. I was like, you do a live, and 200 people are on the call, right? That's engagement, guys. So I think would be just remiss not to ask somebody like you, how do you approach money?
Yeah. I love this question because I'm the unexpected entrepreneur. I've been extremely successful, and I think that this is my secret. I've actually never been driven by money. Early on, to me, money, it's a structure of exchange of something that I value, that I want to give the world, and have some type of structure of exchange for that value. So for me, my focus wasn't on the money, but rather what is the thing of value that I have to bring to the world? And how will I bring that to the world? And Neil, you know me. I have created content. Like my value is my content and my teaching and my resources. Like I know the resources people need to heal. I know the content they need to heal. That's my value. So I needed to create a structure to bring that value to the world and have a way of that value having an exchange. So I created a membership where everything is included. I give them that value, they pay to receive that platform. And that's as simple as it was. I did not think about goals, money. Like it just wasn't my wiring. My wiring was, what does the world need that I have to give, and how do I create the structure to give it?
Okay, all right. That was worth the whole podcast right there. I mean, like, no joke. I want you guys, tough love moment. I want you guys to really take for a moment, if you're listening to this, evaluate for yourself only. Are you actually creating insane value? Are you trying to extract value out of scarcity? Or are you living in the frequency and the vibration of what is the highest level of value that I can live and I can create for other people? I say this all the time. I've gone to these VIP dinners with people who are quote unquote somehow different than you, and they've got different level of success or money or whatever else. And people don't bond with them because they are trying to find some proximity to worth and success instead of walking up to that person and saying, how can I show up with the greatest amount of value? And I also want you to hear, which I firmly believe in, goals don't work for most people. Goals do not work, but it does come from a place of when you can get out of fear and scarcity. And so to have a full circle moment, how the fuck do you get out of fear and scarcity? You can't fix a thought with another thought. It doesn't work that way. Read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. When I read books weird. I draw little pictures. And he talks about how thought amplifies an emotion. I drew a train track and I called it fixation. And the locomotive was thinking and the coal car was feeling. And that's what you guys, where we're amplifying thought with emotion. You have to learn to attune that, right, by changing your nervous system or alchemizing that by staying with the emotion long enough, which nobody teaches us how to do, so that you can take that energy, emotion, or emotion and move it into something else. So maybe, of course, none of these questions were planned, but it's working out so beautifully, which I love. Talk to us about what it means. You do attunements, and they've been very powerful for your community. I've experienced them, right? Joe Dispenza does his own versions. In one meditation, one attunement, you can experience serious shifts that 1,000 hours of fucking thinking will never get you. How do we do that, Kathleen?
Attunements, I call them a brain rewiring attunement, is simply a form of 2-point awareness. The feeling of what you're going towards versus the feeling of where you're at now. Letting the brain see those 2 points and allowing your subconscious and superconscious field, which is the all intelligent field, have an understanding of, how do I get from this feeling to this feeling, or these are the behaviors now, these are the behaviors I want to have. So it's about looking at those two things, seeing them as not either right or wrong, but just two different polarities. And how do I move from those two polarities? Your subconscious and your superconscious are geniuses. They help you to see why you're stuck in one polarity, or what your beliefs are that make you actually afraid. You say, oh, I want to have this success and blah, blah, blah. But there might be a deep part of you is like, no, I don't, because I don't want to be seen. And so when you do an attunement, you actually see the truth. Yeah, I'm saying I want this, but the reason why I keep procrastinating is I'm scared of rejection. So I actually don't want this. So when you can reconcile that, when you can have that real truthful moment, well, actually, I don't want this. Now I don't have to wonder why I'm not successful, why I'm not creating content. You've got to meet the part of you that doesn't want it, and really meet it and understand what its fears are. It's like, oh, you're afraid of rejection. Well, if there was a way for me to have this and also be self-assured enough where that rejection, where I could handle the rejection, would you allow me to keep going towards this goal and working with these parts of you? And if you address the problem and the fear directly, consciously, that part's going to relax because it's been heard. Yeah, I'm afraid of the rejection of success. I'm afraid that they're going to say bad things about me. I'm afraid that I'll be humiliated. I'm afraid they'll find out I'm an imposter. I have all these things. I know them all very acutely. If I'm able to see that that's what this part of me is afraid of, and if I'm able to have the resources and support to handle that potential rejection, would you be willing to help join my main personality in pursuing this goal? And it's a very benevolent, understanding conversation that we have with ourselves to bring all parts on board to go after the things that we truly love. And I have to do that over and over, Neil. I still have to do it. Every level of success, right now there is a whole new thing where I'm running my business in ways that some people want me to do it differently. And I have to stand in what's my truth. I hear your truth. And if this was your platform, this is what you would do. But that doesn't feel good to me. And that might make you leave. It might make you mad at me. Can I handle being truthful to my truth, my way, and letting people that I love disagree and maybe leave? If I don't stay to my truth and I run my platform their way, that's going to make me sick again. Is it worth it? Is it worth it? They're not going to really respect me anyway. So I'm going to have to stay in respect of me and honor my truth. And so you're constantly facing these things, but you got to see them. And I do attunements to help me see these conflicts of what's going on. It's not easy to build a business. It's not easy to handle all of the adversity that goes along with it. But if we can see what's happening inside of us and consciously address them, we're able to make tough choices that often do result in loss and upset and rejection, but we're able to handle it now because we've kept ourselves intact.
Wow, that was really good. I'm reminded of when you choose you in the face of extreme opportunity costs, you really understand your value. I think we're just constantly being urged to make that brave, courageous choice, right? And that's why in a study of 25,000 people at the Spain study, look it up, SPANE, they found that authenticity was the highest vibration, not love. Authenticity was the highest vibration that they could measure in the human body. It's really, really tremendous. So, a couple questions I'll ask you here at the end as we're wrapping up, and then I want people to understand how they can work with you, right? And again, for you guys who may not deem yourself as somebody who has chronic illness, I can say that if you experience any kind of overwhelm, routine burnout, routine stress, this work is for you. It's absolutely for you. This is the difference between you hitting your business goals, your life goals, the difference between you living a life of regret or having your last breath be heart full that you did what you wanted to do. And that's what Dr. Kat's life is typifies. It may not be the typical journey, but I don't hang around typical people. So, Dr. Kat, if you had something that you could tell your 20-year-old self right now, of all the things that you've been through, you could take your hands, hold her face, look deep into her eyes. What would you say?
Oh, that's making me cry. I wasn't expecting that. Um, she was so afraid she wasn't going to be able to do the things that she dreamed of. And so I would look at her and say, sweetheart, you have this incredible willpower to overcome anything, whatever you want to do, it can and will happen. Whatever you want to do can and will happen. You have a drive, a desire, a passion that's supernatural. And you don't need to worry about these things not happening because they can and they will.
Hmm. Wow, let's give you a little bit of space for that. That was really good. How are you playful, Kathleen? Like, what do you do? What's playful about you? Let people know because
Well,
you're a very driven person like me. But what's playful?
I'll be honest, this has been my Achilles heel. Play was filled with fear and anxiety because of the way I grew up. I grew up having to be an adult very early. And so for me, my work of my nervous system has been to learn to play. But if I put myself in a certain situation, I tend to unfold in it pretty easily. Water was the one way I allowed myself to play as a child. So if I go to a river, a lake, any kind of water, I become the water. I become the water. So that's one thing. The second thing is I'm really trying to connect with my kids. And I was just talking to my son. I said, I'm learning how to play a little more, aren't I? And he's like, yeah, mom. And he's like, but you still got a ways to go. And I said, well, actually, my kids were involved in a really serious car accident this week and they survived. I haven't even told you about this, but both cars were totaled. And I looked at him and I said, I guess you're not done teaching me to play yet. And he said, nope, I had to stay to keep teaching you to play because I know that's my deepest healing. And they're the ones that teach me. And so yeah, this is my vulnerability share here. It's very hard for me, but I've been learning. I've been noticing. I usually wear my Aura ring, and when I play with them or go do something like we went to Disneyland, my heart rate variability is amazing. So I know it's such a medicine for me. And my kids are still my teachers, and they get to still be here to teach me, and I'm ever so grateful for that.
Wow, I couldn't have planned that answer or planned that question with you. It just came in the moment. Um, I was coaching a client recently who had a couple kids, and I'm big in play. Like I'm really good at play. When I come to visit you, we'll have a session.
Yeah.
Kid, I'm kidding. But I said to him, I said, if you want to wire any habit, wire it 10 times, 100 times faster in play.
Yeah.
And the reason that we don't want to go back and do the things we want to do is because they're not fun. I said, you need to play more. And he literally said, kind of paused. And he said, I'm going to need instructions for that.
Yeah.
I said, say that again, but say it to your 3-year-old child. We both started laughing until we were crying. Right?
Yeah.
Crying, laughing. Because it's just like, it's so ridiculous that we adults need fucking instructions on how to play. I mean, we vilify the most formative time in our life by calling it childish. I'm totally against this word, right? So wonderful answer. All right, Kathleen, let's wrap things up. I know that people listening to the podcast are going to want to know more about you. So how do they find you? If they want to work with you or your team, how does that happen?
Yeah. So primaltrust.org is our website. If you're interested in an easy understanding of what we do for free, I have a free book that's about 127 pages called How Healing Happens. I outline the science of all the techniques I use. I outline several tools in that book that's also available through my website. Maybe there'll be a link below this podcast. I'm not sure. We also have a lot of free content and free instruction on YouTube and Instagram under Primal Trust Official. And we basically have an online membership. It's a monthly membership. It's $96 a month. It includes everything, live classes every day, academy of hundreds of hours of content, no extra cost there. So that's what I am. That's where
And I can personally attest I've been part of her community and her membership, and it's an insane value, and I will definitely leave those links in the show notes so that you guys can find them. Appreciate you, Dr. Kat, and for being part of the Happy Wealthy Show. Remember always that the best part of being wealthy is being happy. Thank you for listening to the Happy Wealthy Show. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps us reach more people, and through a little bit of your generosity, we can help those impact-driven, heart-centric change makers out there like yourself.